We've learned basic commands, the types of values, and different instructions like loops and conditionals. Then we learned how to create our own commands with functions. So what comes next? Now we're going to learn about objects. Such a powerful tool in programming, there's an entire practice based around them. It's called Object-Oriented Programming, or OOP. Let's look at how it works. But first, let's look at what's wrong with the programs we're already making. Let's say you want to make a program that simulates a library. You have lists with the books, their authors, and other information like number of pages. Then you have some functions that operate on those values. You might have one that prints out all of the names of the books, one that prints out the full information for a book, and one that lets a user check out a book. The problem is there's no real structure in this program. All of these variables aren't grouped in any way that makes sense. You have to use corresponding lists, which can get annoying. The functions can also get confusing. Maybe one takes in parameters, maybe it changes the original list, and if you change one function, another one using it could break. This type of programming is called procedural programming, doing things in sections of steps called procedures. For small sets of instructions, there's no problem. But as soon as you go to make bigger programs with lots of values and functions, it can become all mixed up. In the programming world, we call that spaghetti code, because it's a mess of scrambled values, functions, and instructions. So what are objects, and how does object-oriented programming solve these problems? Simplifying things down, an object is just a unit of values and related functions. X, Y, and Z could be strings, numbers, booleans, lists, or any other values. The functions make and do might print out these values or do some calculations with them. We call the values properties and the functions methods. Let's look at an example. In the library program, you'd probably want to write book objects that store the name of the book, the author, and the length. Then it would have functions related to those values inside of it, such as a printinfo method. But when you define objects in Python, you're just creating the blueprint for book objects. From that blueprint, you can create instances or variations. A book object instance would hold values such as Harry Potter and J.K. Rowling. In your code, you could then access the properties, like book1.author, or call book1.printinfo. On top of that, you can make objects interact. After you create book objects, you'd want to write a library object. Inside, it would probably have a property with a list of books and a list of books that are checked out. It would also have methods for displaying and checking out books. The same way, you could say library.checkout book1 in your code, which is simple and easy to understand. That's the basics of object-oriented programming. It's a structured practice to creating programs, where you group values and functions together, and then make them interact. And that's just the beginning. There's even more advanced things you can do with them, but don't worry about that just yet. In the next video, we're going to learn how to create our own objects with classes. That's all for now. Code Dog out.